We're going to look at enveloping this character and reweighting. A couple of things to do is to identify the objects which are going to work as the deformers. And we have a whole load of groups here, and one of them has been defined as the envelope group, that which we want to deform it, but might not necessarily be the ones which we're going to keyframe. In addition, I've actually, for this character, made a static pose. If I open up the mixer, I'm just going to select part of the object and update. I've created a static pose so that if I were to move my character around, and I now need to envelope it, I can just pop back here. So I've used the mixer store transformations on all of my objects so that I can always return to the envelope pose very quickly. So with this selected, I'm going to simply envelope, set envelope, and pick the envelope group like so. A quick thing to do is either have some pre-built animation, or if you wish, I'll just pop that back there, pin it open, is to just start to move the character around. You can see that it's done its best to automatically assign here, and you can see that if you start to drag the slider, that the number of bones it's being deformed to is being smoothed or evened out like so. Now for this character I'm probably going to have more smooth areas, so I'll do it with a large number of bones and then reassign locally the smaller areas, such as the trunk here. So I can just now scrub back and it'll pop back to its position like so. The next thing is to define how the smoothness has taken hold. And we have inside here something which is smooth envelope weights. Even though I've already done one smooth, if I were to pop this guy down again, these sliders control the amount of fall off for the smoothing of the weights. And the standard settings are often a very good way to start. All of these can be frozen, they're not part of the construction history, so I recommend doing those two operations first. What I've also done underneath the character is to identify individual bones, and here in this case you see I've got the trunk bone, so when I start to reassign the envelope I don't have to wade through a whole load of objects to find exactly what I'm looking for. What I'm going to do is switch to the right viewport. Notice I'm in animation here and I can see the result. And I'm just going to tag these points here. Just going to make sure I have nothing selected. Maybe I'll just tag from here and just Shift plus. I'm just going to grow this selection like so. Now these might be still being smoothed and deformed if I were to move my head. If I go inside the view here and check all objects, we zoom in, is these bones, as I start to move them around, let's say take this one, and rotate it. That's not too bad, but you can see for certainly things like over here it's already deforming because I've did quite an extensive smooth. So with the points tagged, the first thing I'm going to do is reassign them locally, and I'm going to do it to the trunk bones here. So no other points, these will be affected by no other points than the trunk bones. We're now going to switch to the body. Working with both groups and clusters is a very good way to identify that which you need to control. Underneath the object I have a number of clusters. Even though these are polygon clusters, I'm going to use these also for things like texturing, so I need to identify my areas. So here I have the body and torso. With this I can select the members or components. I can also select adjacent points. So now I'm switching to tag mode. And now hitting T, I'm going to say select the rest of the body, like so, because I want to assign this to a group. So I can now switch back, envelope, and reassign locally, and then go back to the body. And so you can see the bones which are highlighting there. So now when I move the trunk, you notice that the body is no longer being affected. At this stage, if you have animation, it's probably the best thing to do to start to see where the weighting needs to be changed. I can continue and work on things like the tail as well as the ears and the trunk. If I open up the mixer and I can load in a source, I'll just do a little walk. So if one animator is working on the animation on the walk cycle, it's always good to even just to get a rough animation. You can see, there we go, we can see how it's working out. Well, so far it's not too bad, but certainly the stomach area isn't great. So again, I can still select even individual parts, and I could even do from that, I could do a smooth weights as well. But I know that's going to be adjusted and looking to other deformers. What I can also do instead is, if I undo this, is to use the weight painting tool. So if I go back to here and hit W, I'm bringing up the weight painting. Inside this little brush here, we also have a little weight paint panel. On the object, you can assign a symmetry map, and with the symmetry map, what will allow me to do is, when I need to paint the weights, is to paint them symmetrically. So if I were to just look at the deformers on here, I can start to select deformers and start to paint it. So for instance, with the head, I can identify it quite easily. I'll switch to wireframe, and maybe I'll just select this. I can see it's called elephant head. Underneath here, I can simply look for the word head. Now, a lot of these are being very long names. This is just a very quick way to identify it. I can also do Control E and open up this, and here we can see it's a little easier to find what I'm looking for. So with the deformer head selected, I can also see the color, which is purple, and I know that here are my purple points. So with this brush now, I can be in additive mode, and if I want these to be 100% onto my head, I need to be able to paint it on. Oh, I think I might have just clicked on the wrong one. Click on head, there we go. So now I'm painting the weight directly on here. I can also switch into symmetrical mode, turn on symmetry, and now you can see my brush, and now I'm painting here. You don't have to worry too much about symmetry. It certainly helps if you want to rough things out, because we also can use the tool which is mirror weights. For painting, it's very much useful for smoothing. So if we were to look at the animation again here, you notice that the body really needs to be smoothed out here. So switching to smooth, I can change the amount of smoothing on here, maybe go somewhere around 50% with symmetrical on, and I can start to paint and smooth out the body here. A really nice, easy way to do it. If I go back to the beginning, I can just smooth this. If I do it to 100%, you can see it if I do it a lot faster here. And it's also the feedback you get from the points and the colorization mean that you can see very quickly how things are going. There, it's a lot better. I can also just stay in shaded mode like so and have a look. It's a little bit wobbly on this side, but the smoothing is the key to being able to just iron out the little areas. So inside the weight panel we can, using these paint tools, to add, reveal, erase the weights directly on here. A lot of the tools, things like apply smooth, local reassign and freeze weights, is a reflection of the same tools here. Underneath the object, as we've been doing this, you can see now that underneath the envelope we have here the weight painter and the smooth envelope. So remember, when I did the original smooth, I can still go back to here and increase the amount of smooth I go. So when I check this, maybe I want a little bit less. You can see now how it's affected. So particularly useful is to keep this open. If you start to find a slowdown at any time, we can simply freeze the weights. And now all the construction history has gone from underneath there and is no longer being used. If I want to, if I've worked on half of my weighting, I'm just going to select a cluster here and actually select member components. If I'm really happy with this, I can say, okay, no problem, I want to mirror my weights. Envelope, mirror weights. And there, all it's done is used a symmetry map again of how to flip things over. If you don't have a symmetry map on here, it will actually ask you for one. If your character isn't symmetrical, it doesn't matter, it's just going to give it its best guess. I'm just going to deselect this. The painting tool is a subset of the weight editor, and it's those tools that you'll actually normally use day in, day out, but it doesn't actually show you all of the vertex weight information. And in order to see that, if I select my object now, there we go, it'll show me the deformers, but the weight editor has all of the weights as well as the deformers in a list here.